My son hit me over a debt I never owed him a single penny of. He raised his hand to me inside my own kitchen, beneath the roof that his father and I spent a lifetime paying for. And when it happened, I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't call him names. I simply picked myself up from the floor. Then I started baking. I made his favorite breakfast: fresh scones, warm porridge, strawberry jam, and a pot of tea. I laid everything neatly on the table using my best china, the set I only brought out for special occasions. And when my son came downstairs the next morning, he looked at the table, smiled, and said something I will never forget. "See? Took you long enough to learn, Mom. A little discipline, and everything falls back into place." He thought he had won. He thought I was afraid. What he didn't know was that I had already made 3 phone calls before sunrise. And in less than 10 minutes, the doorbell would ring. But before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand how we got there. My name is Jillian. I'm 69 years old, and I've lived in the same house in Southampton for more than 30 years. My husband Robert and I bought it when we were young and hopeful. It wasn't much back then, but it was ours. We painted every wall ourselves. We planted flowers in the garden. We spent decades turning that little house into a home. Robert was a quiet man. He wasn't the type to make speeches or seek attention. He simply showed up every day and did what needed to be done. When he died suddenly of a heart attack, it felt as though the ground disappeared beneath my feet. Our son James was 22 at the time, finishing university and trying to figure out his future. At the funeral, he held my hand and promised me something. "I'm going to take care of you now, Mom." For years he tried. He worked hard. He was responsible. He visited often. I truly believed Robert would have been proud. But life has a way of testing people. Everything changed after James was passed over for a promotion at work. He took it harder than anyone expected. Instead of treating it as a setback, he treated it as proof that he had failed. Then came the drinking. At first it was a few beers after work. Then it became whiskey every night. Soon he was spending most evenings alone in his room with a bottle and his anger. The son I knew slowly disappeared. In his place stood a bitter man who blamed everyone else for his problems, especially me. Whenever something went wrong, somehow it became my fault. If he was unhappy, it was because I had pressured him. If he struggled financially, it was because I hadn't helped enough. If life disappointed him, I became the easiest target. And because I loved him, I kept making excuses. I gave him money. £20 here, £50 there, then hundreds. Eventually the total climbed past £10,000. Every time I considered saying no, he would remind me that he was struggling. Every time I thought about drawing a line, I convinced myself he just needed more time. I wasn't helping him. I was enabling him. But mothers can be very good at lying to themselves when the truth hurts too much. The first moment that truly frightened me happened over something as simple as a dripping tap. I asked James if he could fix it. Instead of answering, he exploded. He accused me of caring more about the house than about him. The anger in his eyes chilled me. Not because he was upset, because he looked at me with contempt. From that day on, I started walking carefully around my own home. I chose my words carefully. I avoided arguments. I stopped inviting friends over. I was ashamed of what my life had become. Then came the night that changed everything. It was nearly 3 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, so I was sitting quietly in the kitchen listening to the radio. I heard the gate creak outside. Then heavy footsteps. I knew immediately James had been drinking. Moments later, I heard something shatter in the hallway. One of my favorite ceramic vases hit the floor. When he entered the kitchen, the smell of alcohol reached me before he did. His eyes were red. His speech was slurred. And he was angry. He started shouting almost immediately. About work. About money. About life. About me. I stood up and spoke as calmly as I could. "Son, go to bed. You're not well." Those 5 words were enough. He crossed the room in seconds. He grabbed my arms. He shoved me backward. My body slammed into the cabinet. Pain shot through my back. Then he raised his hand. And he hit me. For a moment, everything went silent. I remember staring at him from the floor. I remember seeing something flicker across his face. Not remorse. Not exactly. But fear. As though even he couldn't believe what he had just done. Without another word, he turned around and went upstairs. I sat there alone. The radio continued playing softly. The kitchen clock kept ticking. And something inside me changed forever. I eventually stood up and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. My lip was bleeding. A bruise was already forming on my cheek. I stared at my reflection. 69 years old. A widow. A mother. A woman who had sacrificed everything for her child. And I realized I was done. No more excuses. No more silence. No more fear. I washed my face. Then I went into the kitchen and started baking. As the scones baked in the oven, I made my decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to threaten him. I was going to let reality do what I never could. I picked up the phone. The first call was to my friend Judith. She had known James since he was a boy. When I told her what happened, she listened quietly. Then she said, "I'm not coming over for breakfast, Jillian. I'm coming to hold court." The second call was to a detective I knew through our local church. I explained everything. I told him I wanted to file a formal complaint. Not tomorrow. Not next week. That morning. The third call was to my sister Sandra. She cried when she heard what had happened. Then she said something that hurt because it was true. "I've been waiting for you to stop protecting him." By 7:30, breakfast was ready. Everything looked perfect. Warm. Inviting. Comforting. Exactly the kind of breakfast a loving mother would prepare. When James finally came downstairs, he saw the table and smiled. He thought the meal was an apology. He thought I had surrendered. He picked up a scone and took a bite. Then the doorbell rang. I walked to the front door and opened it. Standing there were Judith, the detective, and 2 police officers. The color drained from James's face the moment he saw them. His hand froze. The scone fell to the floor. Suddenly, he understood. This wasn't another argument. This wasn't another chance to manipulate me. This was consequences. Real consequences. He tried explaining. He said it was a misunderstanding. He said families should solve things privately. He said he didn't mean it. But nobody interrupted him. They simply listened. When he finished, Judith looked him in the eye. Then she reminded him of the boy he used to be. The boy who helped neighbors carry groceries. The boy who cleared snow from sidewalks. The boy his father had been proud of. For the first time in years, I saw genuine shame in my son's face. Then I stood up. And I told him everything I had kept buried. I told him about the sacrifices his father made. I told him about the years I spent working multiple jobs. I told him about the money, the fear, the loneliness, the humiliation. Then I said something I wish I had said years earlier. My silence taught you that your behavior was acceptable. Every time I forgave you without consequences, I allowed this to continue. Tears filled his eyes. He apologized. He promised to change. He promised to get help. And for a brief moment, I saw the little boy I once knew. But love without boundaries had already cost too much. I looked at him and said quietly, "My peace begins with your absence from this house." A few moments later, the officers placed him in handcuffs. He didn't fight. He didn't argue. He simply looked defeated. As they escorted him outside, he turned toward me one last time. "You're going to regret this, Mom." I stood in the doorway and answered, "Maybe I'll regret that it came to this. But I will never regret choosing myself." Then the door closed. And for the first time in years, my house was silent. Not an anxious silence. A peaceful silence. The kind that allows a wounded heart to heal. Over the following months, I installed security cameras. I began counseling. I reconnected with friends. Most importantly, I learned the difference between loving someone and rescuing them. James entered a rehabilitation program. Months later, I received a handwritten letter. In it, he admitted what he had done. He accepted responsibility. He thanked me for finally forcing him to face the truth. According to him, that morning saved his life. Eventually, we met again with a mediator present. I forgave him. But forgiveness did not mean forgetting. And it certainly did not mean returning to the way things were. I made my boundaries clear. We would never live together again. My home would remain my sanctuary. My peace would remain mine. Today, we meet for coffee, every few weeks. Our relationship isn't perfect. It never will be. But it is honest. And it is safe. Looking back now, I understand something that took me nearly 70 years to learn. Sometimes the people we love most can hurt us the deepest. And when that happens, we face a difficult choice. We can continue sacrificing ourselves in the name of love. Or we can choose ourselves. That morning, with a bruised face, a broken heart, and a kitchen full of scones, I chose myself. And it was the best decision I ever made.